Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Jeff LeBeau, the maintenance superintendent here at the yard. I'm going to provide a handout to you of what the maintenance department's function is here for your reference for later, or in case you're interested. And I'd like to welcome our guests and also recognize the EBRPD staff that's here. So we have Director Dennis Waspy from the board. We have Jim O'Connor, the Assistant General Manager of Operations. We have John Leandro, North County Trade Supervisor, EBRPD staff. We have Renee Robinson, who's our clerical staff support. Andrew Green is our recycling coordinator. Paul Ferrario is here, is our risk, health and safety coordinator from the risk department. And we have Officer Lindsay from public safety joining us today as well. Susan Ewing Haley is the supervisory curator at National Park Service, and we'll be going over a few anecdotes about the Nike missile program, launch site, and activities from the Castro Valley and Marin sites.
Okay, so this facility was established in 1955, and I suspect that until the program last year, most people who work here didn't really know what they were standing on top of. And so it's kind of fun to learn the history of your location, so that you are aware of how your site even came to be and the history that you're standing on top of. So it was built on lands that were leased by the Army from the county and the utility district, and it was one of probably a dozen or so Nike missile sites around the San Francisco Bay Area. Ultimately, there were 145 Nike missile sites in America, and they were largely grouped around major cities and defensive sites, so that they could provide surface-to-air defense against foreign enemy bombers, high-flight bombers. So this was the first surface-to-air missile program in the United States. Every Nike missile site has three components. You're standing on one of the three, which is the launch site. You pass the administrative area, which had barracks, administration, recreation facilities, food facilities, and the motor pool and things of that nature. And then the third area is the control area, which is on a hilltop about a mile away from here. I have not been there. Have any of you been there? Okay, so probably about all that's left is some paths and some concrete pads where the radars stood. So those are the three areas of a Nike missile site. So the next item is a photograph of two of the areas, and you can see, well, you can actually see the HIPAR radar very faintly. So in the foreground is your administrative area. The middle of the picture is the launch area where we are now, and then up on the hill you can just barely see an outline of a circular, one of those golf ball radar kind of things. That's the control area. So all within a fairly small amount of distance here with the lake behind us. The control area was purposely placed away at the top of a hill, so it had a 360-degree visual flight area. And also because the instrumentation was delicate enough that the blast from a launch would have destroyed the tracking mechanisms. So they were separated. The next slide shows kind of how the Nike system worked. You can see right in the foreground, the underground facility will be going down the escape hatch, which shows on the far right of the picture. Then there's a small control room at the bottom, and then the magazine, and then this really massive elevator, which the doors are immediately behind us here. That one missile would be mounted on the elevator, and three other missiles would be able to be brought up and put into position. On the surface were three surface-mounted launchers, and then one launcher is on the elevator, would have been. Your facility has all of the equipment removed downstairs, so you won't be able to see any of that.
So there were 4 missiles at one time?
4 missile capability. This site has 2 magazines, so they could have prepared 8 missiles for launch at a time. Each magazine holds 6 Hercules missiles, which was the later generation, but it could have held 10 Ajax missiles, because that was the earlier generation. They were a smaller missile. So the control area would identify an incoming enemy target, and then they would follow that, and then the missile would be prepared to launch. It would launch and it would intercept the target at some distance out. And in 1974, the Nike missile systems were deactivated, and gradually the facilities were repurposed. In this case, the lease of the Army was returned back to the county owners, and so you have the remnants here. They really didn't have like super fun cleanup. There was no required removal of all trace of Army facilities at that point in time. Although you've made great use of this yard, so I think you've been very adaptive here. Are there any questions?
So, for the nuclear missile, was the idea that they only have to get somewhat close to the approaching bombers and then...
They detonated, the idea was not really to hit the bomber. The idea was to get in an area above the bombers or a flight of bombers and detonate the missile, and then the fallout from the nuclear would get all of them. That was the theory. So it was not like one missile, one bomber. It was like, get the area.
And what was the range of those missiles from here?
That I can't tell you. It was miles. Miles.
So we actually, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We actually had nuclear
Yes.
storage here?
Yes.
I never knew that.
Yeah, that was on purpose.
Yeah.
Really advertised.
It frightens me now looking back 60 years ago, 50 years ago. Geez.
Yes, sir.
So, and I'm told that the whole Nike missile defense system ended like in a day. And it was,
because the capabilities, the defensive needs changed. The air capability became so much better, and they developed the ICBMs and the systems that could be in Wyoming and South Dakota, and they had a range that they could shoot from far inland from really remote areas and hit targets at the coast. So the capabilities just advanced so much that the Nike system on the coast became obsolete.
Well, is there anything like not I thank you.
Go ahead.
Hey Andrew, can you man this?
And bring a harness with you.
Okay.
That is the typical way that you would have entered or left a missile magazine. As I said, ours have stairs, which is really handy for us older folks, but that is the way in and out. And there are two hatches. There's one at the other end, so there were 2 points of entry. And then this area had some of the indicator equipment, so they still had at least one person here in the event of a launch monitoring the systems on the missile. And our facility actually has a piece of the equipment intact. But you can see the painting markings, here's some indicator equipment, and here's a phone over here. Now the actual launch was controlled from a trailer that was on the surface near the gate. So that was called the launch control trailer, and they would have had the people in there who were actually turning the keys to launch the missiles. So you can also see up here all of the conduit holes. So we have this massive collection of cables. It came to have pallets and pallets and pallets of cables. And we just ran a project last month to start cleaning and rehousing a unique set of the cables, so we keep one of everything. And I swear my interns who were working with this said, it took 6 of us to carry one of these things. It was like holding an anaconda. The cables were like this big around, and they're really super heavy. So all over this place, cables would have been strung out between pieces of equipment, between trailers and equipment. So there's a lot of, ground hazards as well. You had to know what you were walking over. So they actually have on our site, it's intact, it's a cable chase, and it's a little corrugated lid that runs over some cables that run from the control trailers out to the launch site. So they actually had one area of those covered. So just a lot of operations, early technology. All of this operated on vacuum tube technology. And we have thousands of vacuum tubes in our collection, from like this big down to this big. And we actually found, when we were surveying our collection, we found 17 pieces that had the nuclear trifoil on those. So we segregated those, and we finally got the Army to come and pick those up. So we don't have any radioactive stuff in our collection.
Yeah, probably 96, yeah.
So our stairs come around here. They go up, and they enter right through. So it doesn't look like that big a room right now, but we have 6 of the Hercules missiles in our magazine. It had a complete rail system across. You see where the yellow lines and the red paint are? That's where the rail system was. So there are 3 missiles on this side, 1 always at the ready on the elevator, which was already pre-mounted on the launcher, and then 2 missiles on the other side. That's the Hercules era. During the Ajax era, as many as 10 missiles could fit into this space and be ready. And then you see these painted areas on the floor. These are for the launch control indicators. They're big boxes that would have been hooked to the missiles, showing the control group, their readiness to be moved into position. Actually, the rail system is it's really super balanced, because I can push a Nike Hercules missile along the rail system myself. They just slide right along there. So ours is so full, we don't move very far because we don't want them to bump into each other. So these.
So this elevator would have a missile on it. It would go up, launch,
Yes.
then lower, and then somebody manually
Correct.
put it on
They
there.
would drop the elevator and they would move another missile onto it and raise it up, and it was a pretty fast operation. I don't know exactly how fast, but it was pretty quick.
Is this the only storage place where they were stored, or is there another one?
This is the only place where they had them fully armed and ready to go. Now, in the Marin Headlands, we had obviously other storage areas where there were additional missiles, and so they were stored at a location nearby, and then they were trucked onto the site as needed. There were never any missiles fired in anger from here. There was a lot of testing that was done. The avionics were continuously tested. The control systems were continuously tested. The crews probably had pretty much daily training of some kind. And when they went to training, they never knew if it was real or if it was a drill. And so they had to operate as though it were real every time.
Missiles over here.
So the elevator is kind of interesting, and we're sort of having these ongoing problems now with our, our 50 to 60-year-old hydraulic systems. The doors are operated by hydraulics. I think most of yours have been removed. I don't think your doors are functional anymore, are they? Okay. So you can see the hinges right here would raise the doors and then drop them inside. So reposition and drop the 2 door leads to the side. And then the elevator goes up pretty fast. It originally does have a controller here on the elevator. So a person would be here and they could push the up and down or the stop buttons. And then this is operated by a single post lift that comes straight up out of the ground. So the rest of the area down there is a concrete pit. It has a sump pump in it. We had a lot of problems with water intrusion with all the rain last year, so we really had a lot of stormwater cleanup in ours. And then all the electrical panels are back here. So the paint colors are indicative of the systems. So all of the blue is electrical, the red is emergency. There's an air vent in that corner, and then the other hatch is on top of that generator structure over there. So if you climb up that, and you can see that.